And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That is Coffee Talk Live, where we will be talking about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news that we will read through and share. And of course, you can find the live portion on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live, is the moniker for that, as well as at Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And of course, for those of you who are listening and not able to see, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable so that you can keep up with the conversation, see what people have to say about what's going on in the news articles. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in. Donna Beaver is here reminding people, thumbs up, like, and share. If you don't mind, that would be great. Helter is here. Dragon is here. Brian is here reminding me that it's February 1st. Yes, it is. Bingo is here. Boogers is here so far as we get ready to dive into the news. And I'm joined by three felines today from our impromptu cat shelter. And you can see Daniel and Dusty in the background if you look carefully. Daniel's in the chair. You'll have to find Dusty on your own. Uncle is in here too, but he's not visible right now. Big as he is, you can't see him. And we'll go ahead and we'll get started. And this is something that came up in discussion yesterday because it was just hitting the news. So we'll take a look at this. And this is an article from the New York Post. And Sven says, let me see if I can pull it up because it's acting funny. Our country appears to be committing suicide. No, I think it's more like homicide being committed against us by our lawmakers. They're killing us because they got us at each other's throats. And we were at a point where we were getting along. We were getting along before the Obama administration, I believe it. New York Post. Cops, come on. Allegedly beaten by rowdy migrant mob near Times Square with suspects later freed without bail. Horrifying video. It says horrifying video. So there we go. Shocking video. God, this is jumping all over the place. Shocking video captured the moment a migrant mob pounded a pair of cops near Times Square over the weekend, but the bustled, cowardly suspects were still released back on the street without bail, sources say. The footage shows a New York Police Department officer and lieutenant initially telling the migrants to move along around 8:30 p.m. Saturday on West 42nd Street in Manhattan. Oh, and here's the footage coming up if you want to see it. There's no audio. Is it still playing? It's still playing. So I'll let that run for a second there if it shows. And there we go. It turned into a fight. They grabbed this guy, and then here comes everybody interfering. And I'll tell you, in my experience, most police they're not efficient fighters, physically fighting. They're not very efficient, number one. And number two, that equipment weighs them down quite a bit. So back to the article. The footage shows New York.
Get the things you love without using credit. Acima Leasing makes it possible.
Be quiet. Hold on a second as I shut that off. Footage shows New York police officers and a lieutenant initially telling migrants to move along. Before things quickly get rowdy as a scuffle breaks out between the cops and a suspect who is wrestled to the ground. The rest of the punks converge on the officers, raining kicks to the head and body of the of the pair of New York's finest as the cops rumble with their pal, whose yellow sweatshirt is completely torn off in the melee. Video shows the two officers left on the ground as the pack runs east on 42nd Street towards 7th Avenue and gets away, though not for long. And they arrest them. Police initially busted 4 of the asylum-seeking thugs, identified by sources as Darwin Andres Gomez Iziguel, 19, Kelvin Servat Arcora, 19, Juarez Wilson, 21, and Yorman Reveron, 24. So they attack 2 cops because I guess they don't want to move, beat them down, run away, get caught, and then are released without bail. And that's how that works in New York if you are not a citizen. Because citizens, they'd be sitting in Rikers waiting for court. That's what would happen if you were a citizen. Let me catch up a couple of comments really quick. Dragon says the story will get buried because it doesn't fit the image of the poor immigrant trying to make their way in America. A criminal is a criminal no matter who they are and where they come from. That's correct. And Dilo is joining us. Eric Peter says, I don't understand. What do these thugs think? They're going to get away with this? Oh, wait, they do. Sad for our country. Yeah, they did get away with it. Good luck finding them again. Now, if they want to round these guys up, where are they? They arrested them, identified them, put them in jail, released them, no bail. I couldn't get away with that. Like I said, they'd put me in Rikers. I'd be sitting in Rikers waiting for court. That's what would happen to me. That's what would happen to you. But we're citizens. We don't have any rights. And of course, the police chief is disgusted that this is happening. He was like, you can't be serious. This is how they're allowed to get away with this. I'm no fan of the police, as you well know. I'm no fan of, because they're not police. They're law enforcement officers at this point. They're law enforcement officers. So I have no love lost in that regard, but they do still serve a purpose, and it's pretty stupid to run around and attack them like that. And again, there's the double standard of what would happen if I did that. And Baki is talking about wrestling. He says, wrestling broke my heart. Vince turned out to be evil. He's always been, everybody knows Vince is evil. Look what he's done to those people throughout the entire career. Listen to any wrestling story and they'll tell you he's a bastard. Big surprise. I'm sorry. Bob67 is here. Glad you could make it. Nature Nerd says 20-year-old thugs crossing our border. Yeah, 19 and 20. And one of them was 24. Heather says weak men and women with empathetic social views are attaining positions of power in our government, and it's ruining our country. Yes and no, because some of the people that are in the highest positions are old as hell, but they're pandering to a system. Checking boxes. And Urban Angst has joined us. Glad you could make it today. As we bounce around, we're going to bounce from New York all the way to California. You'll love this. Anybody in California right now? You'll love this one. News Nation. California set to introduce a series of reparations bills. You think. Now listen to this. The California Legislative Black Caucus, the CLBC, announced Wednesday 14 reparations bills it plans to introduce as the first step to implement the policy proposals outlined in the report last summer by the Reparations Task Force. I wonder how much money was spent on that task force. In a press release, the caucus described the 2024 Reparations Priority Bill package as a multi-year effort to implement the legislative recommendations in the report. Okay. In introducing the 14 measures, California will become the first state to implement concrete legislative proposals to enact reparations, a movement that has been growing in recent years. Now, I'm going to stop right there. It's introducing the measures, but will they be implemented? It says it's the first to implement concrete legislative proposals to enact reparations. And implementing legislative proposals and introducing measures doesn't get anything actually done. That's number one. Number two, as I continue here, it says while many only associate. Now here's the catch. While many only associate direct cash payments with reparations, the true meaning of the word to repair involves much more. As laid out in the report, we need a comprehensive approach to dismantling the legacy of slavery and systemic racism. CLBC Chair Lori Wilson said in the press release, this year's legislative package tackles a wide range of issues, from criminal justice reforms to property rights to education, civil rights, and food justice. Food justice? What the hell is that? I got to add that to the list. Add that to my list of bullshit terminology. Food justice. Food justice, folks. The caucus is looking to make strides in the second half of the legislative session as we build towards righting the wrongs of California's past in future sessions, Wilson added. Did California ever have slavery? I don't think it did. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Among the proposals is an amendment to the California's Constitution to allow the state to fund programs for the purpose of increasing the life expectancy of improving educational outcomes for or lifting out of poverty specific groups. How are you going to increase somebody's life expectancy? How do you propose to do that? Here's the thing. First of all, they start off by saying, while many only associate direct cash payments with reparations, the true meaning of the word to repair involves much more. Translation, you're not getting a check, okay? Which is what you promised everyone. So you're already in trouble if any of this even goes through. Secondly, you have a laundry list of programs that you're already doing. So you're going to enact legislation, allegedly, on programs that you're already doing and act like you're doing people a favor. And the sad part is, most people are too stupid to put those puzzle pieces together and figure it out. Seriously. D-Lo is in California. Of course you are. You're driving a truck out there, correct? And Sven says 23andMe says I should get money. Yeah. Show me the money. Where's the check? And Paul Burke says a movement by 5 people. And he reminds us that Africa had slavery first. They did. And Sven says reparations, stop voting Democrat. Helter says California should be doling out reparations to Chinese immigrants who were harassed during the 1850s by their government. Yeah, a lot of Chinese were badly used and abused by the railroads. A lot of them died connecting the railroads because, they started from the East and the West Coast, and they were supposed to meet. And a lot of them got blown up, buried, drowned in mud. It was terrible. And they were paid very poorly by the railroads. And you know what? I never heard a Chinese person complain about that either. Never did. Dragon says they'll only hasten the exodus of non-black taxpayers. A shrinking tax base will have to carry a huge load. And Urban says the do-gooder's credo, we promise to steal from the oppressor and give to ourselves and our people. Okay, never mind our people, just give it to me. And that's all tax money. It's all tax money. Paul says you can extend someone's life by not giving them the jibby jab. There you go. Don't take it. Don't take that shot. Don't do it. Cruising says California becoming a state triggered the compromise of 1850 to balance its entry as a free state. And Urban reminds us that Africa still has slavery. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But this is ridiculous. Again, you promised people a check. You implied it. Maybe didn't directly promise it, but you implied it. And everybody's like, yeah, give me that check. Reparations, woo! Whether they believe in it or not, they don't even care. They just want a free check. but it's not a free check because it's your tax dollars. It's your tax dollars basically being misappropriated and misused for something you had nothing to do with. Nothing to do with. Stuff that happened hundreds of years ago, maybe somewhere else. Because, like I said, I don't believe California had slavery. And I could be wrong, but I don't think they did. And all people will remind us here. You can read that if you can see it about the reparations movement. And he is correct. True slave descendants don't really care for the most part and represent a very small minority within the Black community in the United States. You know, every Black person in the U.S. is not a slave descendant. Far from it. As we move around here, where is this? Is this Oregon? This story is about Oregon. So we're going to jump from California to Oregon. Paul Burke says, can we get money when they starve us? Oh, you want food justice. Food justice. I'm going to remember that one. I wrote it down. It's on my list. Food justice. Modern bullshit terminology. Food justice. I want food justice. Damn it. Those are those people who threw soup at the Mona Lisa. Food inequity. Oh God, the government owes everybody a meal. Yeah, okay. And as I pointed out then, the Bible says, by the sweat of your own brow shall you eat your daily bread. Go get your own damn food, honey. I just get your own damn meal. Earn it. Work for it. Don't expect a handout. You don't deserve it. And Urban says, before receiving reparation payments, a listed beneficiary should submit a DNA test. Bunch of fakers. Yeah, very few people can trace their lineage. Very few to anything involving slavery. They can't do it. It's a very small minority here. As we move around, again, we're going to jump to Oregon, and this is a Western Journal article. Measure that blue state voted for resulted in a 241% increase of opioid deaths. And it forces Democrats to declare a state of emergency. And there is a state of emergency in Oregon because of opioid deaths now. Here we go. You would think decriminalizing hard drugs would be universally recognized as a bad idea, but it seems the leaders and citizens of Oregon didn't see it that way until the time came to reap the consequences. Sarcastic article, isn't it? And it seems that the time to reap those consequences is just about now, considering that according to a story in CNN, Oregon has been forced to declare a 90-day state of emergency in downtown Portland due to an ongoing and increasingly alarming drug addiction crisis, specifically fentanyl. Oh, you think? As reported in CNN, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, Multnomah County Chair, Multnomah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Jessica Vega, Pedersen, and Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler each made an emergency declaration to address the public health and public safety crisis in Portland's central city, citing overdoses, deaths, and fear driven by fentanyl use. Gee, I don't understand how that could have happened. The reason behind the crisis stems from the now infamous Measure 110, which decriminalized some use of hard drugs, including fentanyl, a potent synthetic opioid, and passed in the Oregon State Legislature back in 2020. As a result, opioid overdose deaths in the state increased from 280 in 2019 to 956 in 2022, and an astounding 241% increase. If only there was some way this could have been avoided. See, it is being sarcastic. At least the Oregonian leaders. Oregonian? That's what they call themselves? That sounds terrible. Leaders are doing something about it, though maybe not quite enough. Part of the plan for Portland's 90-day state of emergency is setting up a command center in the middle of the city, which will measure the effects of fentanyl use and addiction on Portland citizens and direct addicts to the relevant treatment centers. I see. So your solution to the problem isn't to reverse the decision. It's to waste taxpayer money on a study of something that you already understand and tell addicts where they can go to get help, which won't work because they're addicts and they don't want help. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Oh, God. Merv says Libya has slavery now, but nobody's complaining. Yeah, nobody's going to complain about that because it's Libya. Nobody gives a shit about Libya. And Paul Burke says he's working 12 hours a day to grow food. Good. Bingo says it wasn't just Chinese. The Irish and Italian immigrants were treated as slaves too on the railroad. They still find mass graves of them. Yeah, those were the guys coming from the east to the west coast, correct? Like I said, they were converging from both sides to meet in the middle. Nature Nerd says the politicians caused this crisis in the first place. True. Dragon says, it strikes me as odd that Oregon doesn't issue a state of emergency for their alcohol crisis. Kills more people, but the government makes money on it. Yes, they do. Yes, they do, actually. And funny enough, I've got a story coming up about alcohol. You'll get a kick out of this. Have I got the story on here about alcohol? Yes, I do. I'm going to read the one on alcohol next. You'll love this too. I can't get enough of it. And Urban says, last August, British Columbia Center on Substance Use published protocols for prescribing fentanyl to minors without informing parents. It's now in a gray area for prescriptions. Unfreaking believable. I'm against medicating, period, personally, especially where kids are concerned. There's other ways. I had a client once who had ADHD really bad, and he was scared of taking the medication for it because he couldn't sleep, and because he was losing a lot of weight, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I gave him a hacky sack. You remember hacky sacks? So he'd stand there kicking the damn thing all day instead of taking the pills. Worked. It worked. It just needs something to freaking do half the time. So we're going to go from allowing drugs to allowing alcohol. Bounce back to California. You'll love this too. The Messenger. San Francisco considers allowing people to drink in the streets. Public drinking, they're going to lift the ban on public drinking. They're trying to. The idea behind the bill is to bring foot traffic back to downtown areas following the pandemic. Oh, a California law under consideration would allow cities to designate areas where people could drink alcohol in public streets. Introduced by State Senator Scott Wiener, yes, of San Francisco. Seattle Bill 969 would put cities in control of creating, quote, entertainment zones where public drinking would be permitted. I keep thinking of like, what's the name of that show? Beavis and Butthead. He said Wiener. The idea behind the bill is to bring foot traffic back to downtown areas following the pandemic, Wiener told local news. Cities in California vary widely in their recovery trajectories, but none has yet reached the levels of foot traffic seen in 2019 in their downtowns. This reduced activity threatens to stymie economic recovery in San Francisco, Wiener told the outlet. Certain licensed businesses in California are currently allowed to sell alcoholic beverages to go, but restaurants and bars are not. The proposed law would allow bars and restaurants to sell to go drinks as well as in designated entertainment zones. So now instead of brown bagging your 40, you can just carry it out in the open. I love it. And you don't think this will lead to a problem? All the bums will be like, I can just drink out in the open now. It's an entertainment zone. Nothing you can do about it, Mr. Law. Oh my God. These people are crazy. All people, says the entire Middle East, the entire African continent, and most of the Indian subcontinent still use slavery of every sort. The UN responds by migrating them to Western nations. And Paul says, so they're going to let drunks and alcoholics on the streets. They're already there. May as well make it legal. Cruising says, we have public drinking in our downtown. I like it better than before when it was banned. Less people chugging down drinks just to finish them and more outdoor performances since you can wander. Excuse me. And Nature Nerd says people don't want to be around drunkards in the streets. Even less people will go to these places, and businesses will lose money in foot traffic. Well, now San Francisco will smell like beer as well as urine and feces. So you get that entire floral ambiance of what it truly is to be in San Francisco now. That's how it's going to happen. Let me see. Helter says personal injury lawyers probably push this bill through to make as much money as possible. Yeah, they let me go out and drink and I fell down and I want to sue. That's what'll happen. Hey, how about Target? Haven't picked on Target in a while. Target can't stay out of trouble. Target can't stay out of trouble. Can they? They can't do anything right. My recommendation, if anybody from Target Corporate is watching, run your store and sell your product and keep your politics to yourself. Stop trying to virtue signal. I don't care what it is or how you're doing it. Stop trying to virtue signal. No more black power this and gay rights that. Stop before you end up bankrupt. Dragon says another great law. Why stop there? Fornication in public sounds reasonable. They already do that in the public restrooms in San Francisco. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Here we go. Civil rights at Target. Magnet learning activity. And it says Target Black History Month. It's Target celebrating Black History Month. It is February, you know. And here we go. Target slammed mislabeled magnet book. Wrong Black History Month figures. And this is from TMZ. Target is under fire for selling Black History Month material in their stores with factually incorrect information, namely grossly mislabeled historic Black Americans. The old-time snafu was pointed out by TikToker at Lissot, who posted a now viral video of what she says she found in her Target near her. In the clip, she shows off a magnet-style learning activity book called Civil Rights. It comes from a children's product retailer called Bendon, but this user is mad at Target for hawking these books, which she says have names of prominent Black figures mismatched with the photos. And here's an example. You'll see what she's talking about. There are at least 3 examples, completely mislabeled names, and Isa is pissed, calling it more than just an oversight. And there you see this person is billed as being Carter G. Woodson, but it's actually supposed to be W.E.B. Du Bois. And here's another example. This is W.E.B. Du Bois, but it's actually a photo of Booker T. Washington. Nice going, Target. You didn't check on any of this? you didn't check on any of this? Let's see here. The user, who apparently teaches U.S. history, gave a rundown of the mistakes she immediately noticed. For instance, the picture of Carter Woodson in this magnet book is actually Pan-Africanist civil rights activist W.E.B. Du Bois. Du Bois, who I believe was quoted as saying, the world needs ditch diggers as well as doctors. Is that Du Bois, the guy who was against public school? I can't really blame him for that, though. Elsewhere in the book, the picture labeled with Du Bois' name is actually educator and author Booker T. Washington, while the book's snap is actually Woodson. Talk about a mess. ISIS says action needs to be taken immediately, writing in the caption that mistakes happen, but it only takes one person to point it out and ask for corrections. Now that she's calling on Target to remove the product from its inventory. The publisher is as of yet to respond to the post. I bet Target hasn't responded either, has they? We've reached out to Target and Benton for comment, and there has been no word back. Nope, they didn't respond. They didn't respond. They'll just quietly shuffle it away like they did with the tuck bathing suits and pretend like nothing ever happened. And eventually people will forget all about this, won't they? Won't they? They forgot already. Urban says, I always found it curious that Target's attempted expansion into Canada failed so quickly. Yeah, I know. The Canadian government should love them. And Nature Nerd, back on the previous subject, legalizing drugs and alcohol in these states and cities means these industries want to make more money and are in cahoots with the government. Well, the government wants the tax revenue from it. That's why they've been pushing for marijuana legislation so much in recent years, and many states have allowed it now. They want that tax revenue, so they're willing to take that sin tax. And as far as Oregon and fentanyl addicts wandering in the street, there comes a point in time where nothing further can be done to help anything. Paul says history is all lies anyway. Well, there's a lot of truth there. You have to be willing to actually look for it and not just take the establishment's word for how things go. It makes me think, the situation in Oregon makes me think of, and I'm not condoning this because I'm sure somebody will get mad, of China's Anglo Asian wars that took place over opium, because China was the biggest recipient of Indian opium from Great Britain when they were once upon a time the biggest drug cartel on the planet. And the emperor wanted the opium to stop coming. And they fought with the British twice and lost. And China, they barely even had to invade China. They just kept wrecking their ships and their ports, because Britain understood that China was too big to invade. There was no way. But they had a very superior navy. So the Chinese emperor reversed to the concept, okay, I get it. We can't beat the British at their own game. So we're going to change the game, and executed all the drug addicts so that there wouldn't be anyone to buy the opium. Helter says, reminds me of a Seinfeld episodes where Costanza pulled a stunt to make a point in order to prove to his boss, who was black, that he wasn't racist. I remember that episode. And he convinced an exterminator, was it an exterminator, to go to lunch with him so his boss or his coworker, right? It was his coworker, would see him with a black eye and he would pretend it was his friend, something stupid. And Brian says, were Walmart and Kmart ever this far left? I don't think so. I don't remember them doing stuff like that. I don't recall them ever doing stuff like that. Not that far. Target is out there. And it's really ridiculous, quite frankly. And All People has a few words about Black History Month. You can see it there. And Cyberjack Sr. has joined us. Glad you could make it today. As well as Arakel. And he says the East India Company. Correct. The East India Company. They grew the opium in India, processed it, and transported it primarily to China. They were the biggest customers. And like I said, the Chinese emperor, because when they realized, hey, like 30% of our population is zombies walking around high on opium all day and causing all kinds of crime and poverty, and they're dangerous and they're nasty. We need to do something about this. Stop bringing opium into our country. They fought with the British and lost twice, if I remember correctly. And Arakel says, by the way, a little hint, Boston Tea Party has the hidden story of opium being brought in. Interesting. And All People says the Seinfeld show was full of crap, yet showed how stupid liberals and leftists were and still are. Yeah, Seinfeld's not a bad show. I don't think so. And they do showcase a lot of things that that the extreme liberal-minded sort of person likes to believe is the right thing to do and make it look foolish. Like when Kramer refused to wear the ribbon. And it's like, hey, I'm supporting you. I'm in the march. I'm trying to promote this, but I just don't want to put the ribbon on. And they beat him up. They mobbed him in an alley and they beat him down for that. Nature Nerd says Target is left but anti-union at the same time. And that's kind of funny, actually, that that they are anti-union, as extreme, seeping, bleeding milquetoast, far left liberal as they come off. I put them all the way in the corner. That's Target in the corner. That's Target in the spotlight. You guys awake back there? Dusty's upset because Daniel is in her spot. You can see them sitting behind me there. As we shift around, and we're going to talk about, you'll love this one too, Omar, New York Post, another New York Post article. There's everybody's favorite squad member. Do you have a favorite squad member? Do you have a favorite squad member? I don't. I'm sorry. Ron DeSantis wants squad member Ilhan Omar expelled and deported over the Somalia First speech. I don't know if you've heard this yet. I don't know if you've heard this one yet. And Raccoon says Dusty's giving him the stink eye. Yeah. She's upset. That's why she's sitting over top of him. So here she goes. And there's the translation. Let me back this up. I'll see if I can play it for you. She's speaking in her own native language. And I guess, you know, in her arrogance, it didn't occur to her somebody might translate this. Says, my response was the U.S. government will do what we ask it to do. We should have this confidence in ourselves as Somalis. We live in this country. We are taxpayers in this country. This country is one where one of your daughters sits in Congress talking about herself. While I am in Congress, no one will take Somalia's sea. Now, here we go. The United States will not back others to rob us. So do not lose sleep over that, oh Minnesotans. The lady you sent to Congress is on this, and she is as cognizant of this interest as you are. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Tuesday that the squad member Ilhan Omar should be kicked out of both Congress and the U.S. after video emerged of the far-left Democrat giving a speech in which critics say she placed Somali interests above those of the U.S. Quote, expel from Congress, denaturalize, and deport, the former 2024 Republican presidential candidate wrote on X next to a clip of Omar's remarks. The latest controversy involving the Minnesota lawmaker kicked off after Omar delivered a Somali language speech to a gathering of community leaders at a Minneapolis hotel Saturday night, during which he rallied against plans by the Ethiopian government to enter a sea access deal with the breakaway Republic of Somaliland. In a translated video of the remarks by DeSantis, Omar said the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They must do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interests of Somalia. As she goes on here. So, I get the point here, because essentially, this is a person, whether she's from Somalia or not. I mean, obviously she's Somalian. She must be a U.S. citizen. She made it to Congress. But the purpose of her function in Congress is to represent her constituents. Granted, many of her constituents may be from Somalia. and many of them may be U.S. citizens, but they're not Somalians anymore, are they? So whatever's happening in Somalia, between Somalia and Ethiopia, is their damn business. If she's that concerned about what's going on over there, let her go there and do something about it. You're a U.S. citizen now. Where do your allegiances lie? If your allegiance lies with Somalia, then can you truly represent the U.S. and the constituents in Minnesota? And Puck says she assimilated quite well, huh? Yeah, she's doing great. She's doing just great as an American citizen, you can tell. And Urban says they recall on the Nature Channel a scary segment about how carpenter ants can be taken over by a fungus that drains the ant of nutrients and takes over its mind to compel it to leave safety. Woke carpenter ants. There you go. And Semper said had to mute when she spoke. Can't stand that POS. Yeah, I know. I know what she means. I know what you mean, rather. That and again, not all your constituents are Somalis. Okay, what about your other people? What about other people? But you're only concerned about them, and you're only concerned about what's going on in your home country. So why speak English? And again, arrogant enough to assume that nobody's going to translate that. Helter says politicians who can't even articulate a reasonable critique on an issue and incite anti-intellectual nationalist fervor. Instead, they sound like unhinged soundbite generators. The raccoon says she's so concerned she can go live there. Yeah, and that's exactly my point. And Puck says her citizenship is very suspect or fraudulent, I'd say. Then send her back. Throw her the hell out. Send her out with all these other people that'll get deported when Biden loses. And all people said Omar's family are warmongers who threatened with death any Somali who does not vote for her. Most Somalis in the U.S. are on welfare, yet they think they contribute to America. Well, according to her, they're taxpayers. She said so in the little speech there. And Dragon says there's a huge problem with her words. She said, we, in regards to national ID, as Somalia, pay taxes and live in America. This means we should pay taxes as a separate group from a different nation. And Cruising said she assimilated better than Somali police officer in Minneapolis that killed a white woman who called the police for help a few months before the Floyd events. Interesting. And Nature Nerd said Somaliland would be a more functional country than Somalia. Not if it's constantly interfered with. Nobody's from. I doubt the U.S. will do anything to mess around down there. Ethiopia, Somalia, those countries, they don't have anything to contribute, so nobody cares. Again, there's 50 wars going on right now in the world. There's only 2 you ever hear about because only 2 of them are in countries that produce anything. Urban said, didn't she say not only was she Somalian first, but also Muslim second? Let's hope that being an American is at least third. And if she's Somali first and Muslim second, that could get her in a lot of trouble if she ever went overseas. Because I think she did say that. I think you are correct. And no hardcore Muslim will tolerate that. Oh, Allah is second? That's a good way to get thrown off a rooftop, honey. Good way to get thrown off a rooftop. You will suffer for that. We may as well bounce, since we're already overseas, to China. And this is a Telegraph article. Chinese hackers infiltrated home Wi-Fi routers to attack infrastructure, the FBI warns. Oh, and that's the Honorable Christopher Wray. How do you get to be honorable? I want to be honorable. It's the Honorable David on Coffee Talk. The distinguished gentleman from Coffee Talk. It seems so pompous. Chinese state-sponsored hackers have infiltrated outdated home and office Wi-Fi routers in the U.S. in preparation for attacks on electrical grids and water supplies. How old can they be to be outdated? We haven't been doing it that long. A U.S. government investigation found that hundreds of old routers have been infected with malware by Beijing-backed hacking group known as Volt Typhoon. The FBI on Wednesday said it had deleted the malware that was distributed on the routers of unknowing Americans to gain a foothold in the country's critical national infrastructure. The UK's National Cybersecurity Centre has previously warned that hackers backed by the Chinese state were trying to infiltrate Britain's key infrastructure and hiding in computers to evade detection. The Five Eyes intelligence network of the UK, US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia issued a joint statement last May asking infrastructure providers to be vigilant to Chinese threats. The warning came after Volt Typhoon hacked into a U.S. military outpost in the Pacific Ocean. Ken McCollum, the director of MI5, said in October, you know what that means, MI5? That means he doesn't have a license to kill. Said in October that there has been a sharp rise in Chinese attempts to steal state secrets in the UK, warning a conference of Western security chiefs, we all need to be aware and respond before it's too late. Okay. That's what needs to happen. You know, I have a suggestion. Since they since they're hacking routers, it says infiltrated outdated home and office Wi-Fi routers in the US. You remember the old days when everything wasn't controlled by Wi-Fi? Maybe you could just go back to that. You know, back when Alexa didn't operate your toaster or your vacuum. Your vacuum needs an app. Why does your vacuum need a damn app? And you wonder how come all this crap gets hacked. I mean, seriously. Why why does everything need to be wireless and have a freaking app, and then you wonder how come stuff gets hacked? It's outdated in a week. All right? Because you keep adding shit to it all the time. I get so sick and tired of updates. I get tired of cloud. You know, every time there's an update, they put cloud back on my computer and I take it off. I don't want freaking cloud. Get it through your head. I did. Oh my God. Unbelievable. Let me catch up a couple of comments here. Bingo says, how can someone swear an oath on the Bible while being Muslim? Did she swear on the Bible or did she swear on a Quran? Did she swear with a book at all, or did she just swear an oath of office? And again, an oath of office is only as good as the person saying the words, because all they are is words if you don't mean it. It's just words that you said to get a job. I hear that all the time. That person took an oath of office. They have an obligation. Yeah, well, if they believe that they do and they didn't just repeat after me, she took an oath. That doesn't mean anything. Not to her. It should mean something, but it doesn't. We see people all the time. Doctors took an oath. They took a Hippocratic oath. I shall do no harm. But they're perfectly happy to snip somebody's nuts off for a few dollars, knowing the long-term after effects that that person is going to suffer through for the rest of their lives. They don't care. Look at these people with these crazy body modifications, built-in horns, split tongues, tattooing the whites of their eyes, things that cause serious health risks. Those people took an oath. Doesn't matter when they get paid enough. And Puck says, what a useless FBI director this clown is. Cruising said Ethiopia is building a huge hydroelectric dam on the Blue Nile. They plan to sell power to most of West Africa when it's done, but there's concern about filling the reservoir by nations downstream. There you go. And Helter says the public has a very distorted image of security of bulk electric power. An amazing proportion of Americans think critical infrastructure is connected to the internet. And Dragon says the Chinese aren't going to do it. Our government is going to do it. All this havoc our country is going through right now is a direct result of this government. And then they always blame someone else. Well, that's what all governments do. Nature Nerd says the UN already has peacekeeping missions in Somalia. Yeah, see how well they work, too. And Sven says he's convinced the directors of everything sit at home and use feces to make paintings on the walls. You know, it's valuable to do that. Just ask Hunter Biden. And All People reminds us that Africans and Caribbean migrants are notorious for remaining loyal only to their nations of origin, and they make trouble. And Cruising says, when I swore it was on the Constitution rather than any faith book. And Bingo says that they thought you had to swear on a Bible to serve a public office. In theory, I don't know if that's enforced. I don't know if that's currently being enforced in public office, or if they will give you the option of using a different, quote, holy book. And Puck says, concern about routers, concern about Chi-Coms buying up U.S. farmland, not so much. Yeah, I know. And unless you're in Florida, because Florida banned Chinese interests from buying land there. And All People says robot vacuums were discovered to have listening devices where comments were sent to CIA, FBI databases. Oh, geez. They're spying on you. They're spying on you. And here's a story. It's a local one. You're not going to see this in the media. You're probably not. There's a this is a local story. It's an Atlanta story. This one might hurt your feelings. So here we go. Fox 5. Everyone was fully clothed. Pole dancing studio coordinator defends their mommy and me pole dancing classes. Oh my God. I don't know if I should even run the video. I don't think I should. I think I'll get in trouble. And think about this. That's the point, isn't it? If this was okay, I could play this video and not get in trouble with ScrewTube. I don't think I can. But for those of you who are watching, you can see those images there. Those are kids in a mommy and me pole dancing class. And it says, again, fully clothed. It looks pretty damn skimpy to me. I don't think a girl that young should be dressed like that, personally. I have a problem with it. I hate seeing young girls in the streets in skimpy and revealing clothing. It bothers me. So here we go. An Atlanta dance studio has found itself at the center of an online controversy after a video showing young children learning pole dancing techniques went viral on social media. The video that's been viewed thousands of times was a recap of a newly launched Mommy and Me pole class offered at Pink Poles Studio. Oh, God. Pink Poles Studio. Insert your own jokes, folks. Fox 5 reporter Joy Dukes spoke with the coordinator of the program, who says despite public perception, they don't believe there was anything inappropriate about it. I mean, come on, guys. What's wrong with a mom introducing their daughters to their profession and getting them ready for a high-paying career in the future? It's kind of like take your kid to work day. Where are we here? Because it skipped around. I'm trying to catch up. Most people hear pole and think exotic dancing, but the kids aren't doing anything like that. Royale Lazard said, the woman's name is Royale, and you're going to tell me she ain't a stripper? Moms and their kids work together to do double tricks and double spins. Everyone was fully clothed. Oh my God, that kid looks like she's 5. Wow. You know, I can typically talk a mile a minute, but that just makes me pause for a second because I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Moms and their children between the ages of 4 and 14 are welcome to participate, program coordinator Royale said the class sold out quickly. It was a bonding experience between moms and their kids. Oh no. Why did I pull this one up? Oh no. Urban says we won't turn your sons into thugs or your daughters into hoes. Tom McDonald and Ben Shapiro. Yeah. Helter says we're destroying our children for brownie points. Our society have questionable morals and we give God the middle finger every chance we get. But then they'll turn around and say it's all about God and Jesus got my back. And they'll go to church and raise their hands and fall out. Oh, the Lord is on my side. Cruising says, why is shit like this always mommy and me, never daddy and me? I would hope it's because most men wouldn't do something like this. But there's a lot of fruity dudes out there. And Dragon says, I don't agree with this. There are so many other physical activities that can benefit a child just as well, introducing them to something they are too innocent to understand the pros and cons of. Exactly. I did a lot of stuff with my kids. I took them to karate class. I taught my youngest to swim. I took him to I got a membership at the YMCA, and I'd take him to the pool every Saturday and Sunday and work with him until he learned how to swim. You know, there's a bonding experience a parent can do with their child. If they can swim, teach them to swim. If you can ride a bike, teach them to ride a bike. Something that will benefit them. This is not a benefit to them unless they're going to grow up and work in a strip club. Raccoon says next there'll be Daddy and Me drag. Oh, please don't say it. Drag makeup classes. Oh, Raccoon, shame on you. Someone will see that and think it's a good idea. And then they'll do it. Oh, that's about as bad. But that child looks like she's 4 or 5 years old. I can't stand it. The images aren't doing right. It's trying to make me play the video. I'm not going to play the video because I think it's just too much. Cruising says, do your kids a real favor, teach them to read since the schools can't or won't anymore. And that's something else I did with my kids. I was very adamant about it. I have a whole collection of the Seeger. They're tomes. They're huge books of the original Seeger Popeye series. And the collection of them, it's about this thick. There's 5 books in the series. 6 books in the series, I think. And what we would do is I would read one page and then he would read the next one. I'd read the next page and he'd read the next one, left, right, left, right. And I'd do the voices and everything to make it engaging. And we read through all of those. And we did the same thing with Tintin. For those of you who recall Tintin, we read those together. I do the same thing. I'd read the page on the left, he'd read the page on the right, and I'd do the voices, and I would do basically a dramatic read. I would do a dramatic read of it. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, that's a great idea. But no, you don't do that. You got an app for that. You got a damn app. And you can give the kid their phone and I'm learning to read, mommy. Oh, I hate that. I hate seeing little kids with phones. All People says the dance studio is grooming little girls for strip joints and little boys for gay strip joints. How much you want to bet dance studio owner Royale hails from a migrant family? You just can't let it go. And Semper Fi says, oh God, raccoon eyes. Yeah, I know. Because somewhere that's happening. You already know. In today's world, God help us. And Semper Fi says, don't give them any ideas. Gary Smith says, how many people today think or even know that healthy activities are bonding? Not enough of them, because they got this pacifier. They got a great little pacifier, and you can hand it to your kid and ignore them. They can sit there like this all day, and you go off and do whatever you want and ignore your child and pretend like they don't exist because you didn't want them anyways. Oh, big can of worms. If you want, we can get back to this article tomorrow because we're getting close to the end here. I see we still have Dusty and Daniel sitting in the background, and uncle asleep in the corner. You can't see him. I tried. And Paul Burke says that's just plain child abuse. You could make the argument. You could make that argument. But we are at the top of the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping things up. And there's one more from Raccoon. It says they see it at restaurants. Parents are talking and the kids all on the phones. Yeah, I can't stand that. And we go out to eat. There's always a rule. I know I'm over the time. It's okay. And my wife and I still do this. If we go to somewhere to eat, the phones are set away and we do not touch them while we are in our meal together. And I used to do that with the kids too. I never gave my youngest a cell phone. My ex gave him the cell phone after she took him from me. And my middle kid didn't have a cell phone until he was 15 years old. But again, this is Coffee Talk. So you have been watching and or listening to Coffee Talk, and it's at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. We can go ahead and pick this back up again tomorrow. And of course, there is always Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So thanks to everybody who was able to join us here today. Glad you could make it. Hope you got something out of the conversation as always. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up, and I will see you again tomorrow.